Hello, welcome back into Tony Talking Trash about music here. And I'm going to be talking today about somebody that holds a very special place in my heart. I revere this guy on the same level that I revere John Coltrane. I think he's an equal innovator on his instrument. And, a lot of people have been put off sometimes by the technical sound and the limitations of some of the things that was going on during the period of time that he recorded. But I'm talking about the late, great Allan Holdsworth. I am a huge fan. I have the box set here. I'll show you the box set once I'm done. But I've been a big fan for many, many years. Allan, I saw some of the initial shows that toured the United States at the 930 Club. I didn't see any of the stuff out on the West Coast. But I think he started his solo career out of some of the projects he'd done. Everybody was well aware of him being in Tony Williams' band and starting off before that in the other projects that he had. I guess the one band that he had to start off with was called Bottom's Rent. But that was in the 70s. You moved on with that, and then he's ends up with Soft Machine and Bundles, of course, is a fantastic record. Anybody has that to get that done. He gets caught up with Bruford and the whole Bruford solo thing in UK. Goes through all that stuff and is fantastic, but he really comes to a head with that, and then he moved on here. He played a little bit with Gordon Beck, and at the same time he's trying to get his own thing off the ground. He ended up playing with Tempest and Tempest singer, poached Tempest's singer Paul Williams, who ended up singing some of the stuff on Road Games and some of the early versions of what happened. But they hawked their own record, ended up coming out here and finding out that they couldn't play in England, so they ended up coming to the United States. They had success, so they ended up being able to sell their record here. Problem is, it was too difficult for the other British members of that, Paul Carmichael and Gary Husband especially, to come through. And we'll talk a lot more about Gary Husband later, because I believe that, in the development of Allan Holdsworth's whole oeuvre and the whole thing that he stood for, I think Gary Husband is the most important collaborator that he had, is one of the initial things. And I think the thing that they developed together, in so many words to say, was really the basis of everything that followed. In my opinion, some of the greatest stuff happened between those two players, and that's not to slight anybody else. Chad Wackerman's stuff was fabulous, a great, great player. Jimmy Johnson, of course, fabulous bass player. Scully Skevinson, or how you want to say his last name, fantastic on a short period of time, but very good. And then you had a lot of the people that played, in the later years. Virgil Donati, most notably, drummer, and but you had all kind of other players that played with him for a period of time. And I don't want to slight anybody with it, but everybody, really wasn't the same. I mean, his live recordings, I have a good number of good live recordings of his bands, different bands at times. And what's so disappointing to a lot of us is that he ended up, being hand to mouth. But again, the internet and the world is full of stories of what happened. What happened with him when he was on Favored Nations and tried to deliver the record to Steve Vai, and then it ended up destroying the record. Or stories of Jimmy Johnson going over and trying to get it done. The turmoil that he had from his divorce and the separation and stuff of what was going on took a big toll on him. He was also a very big bicycle enthusiast. He was an electronic genius. He would build his own gear and his delayed sound, which essentially was a series of delays exactly at certain intervals, multiple, ridiculous amounts, like 7, 8, 9 sometimes. Then he went to the Steinberger guitars, of course, the Syntax, which requires a different kind of a keyboard attack and a different thing. Even playing it with, going through different permutations, even like doing a one-off with Vince Kuda, record called Secrets, and we'll talk about later. This is just, there's nothing like it, man. There's nobody, in my opinion, it doesn't matter, what anybody says. There's really nobody that touches this stuff, and there's nobody that had the type of radar communication, I believe. And Chad had it as well. I mean, Chad and Allan had a different one, and they understood exactly each other. And it's amazing if you ever get a chance to see Chad Wackerman contrast on one of the Drum Channel things. I think they asked him about the difference between his audition for Holdsworth. Appropriate to take a drink of beer, because he was a beer enthusiast as well, and certainly probably not this stuff, but and Zappa. The difference is in how it went, and Holdsworth was all about feel, and it really shows in the music. I mean, it shows in the fermatas and the speed ups and stuff. I mean, it's all through the music and the way it works and their communication. And what I think is incredible, if you look back, and I know Gary said some things about it at the time because of the shape of Allan and different things, but I mean, if you look back at that one where Gary has that hideous salmon colored shirt on, and they're playing, and it's a three piece, and it's Jimmy Haslip, he and I think they're playing Devil Take the Hindmost or whatever, and it was just going off. And I remember Jimmy like looking and going, "What the hell?" At Allan, because Allan playing this inwardly bending thing. There was nowhere else to go. It was just it was an amazing series of notes that anybody would hear that, but it's certainly commendable. But I imagine they reached the highs at lesser points at that point. It was said to that. I've heard some of the later shows. They're okay. I was always one of the ones that was frustrated with the lack of new material, and I know that some of the material had a sameness to it. Some people just are not as big composer or composition takes a lot out of them. And the point is that, as I alluded to earlier, was Allan was notoriously, from everybody that worked with him, so hard on himself and so hard that a lot of stuff, that ideas that started, never got off the ground. There were all kind of plans for the vault thing at new recordings. We ended up getting the one with Virgil, which was nice, but it, in a way, it was disappointing. I think everybody thought we were going to get more out of it. I didn't rate that in here. What I ended up rating were 12 records, studio records. Not talking about the live things all night long or the uh, live thing. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about studio records, and we're talking about the great Allan Holdsworth and a man. So let's get started here. A little bit of participation from people here on this. I'm one of the few people that have this on vinyl because I have that box set. I was not going to let it go. Flat Tire, folks. Flat Tire is it's a solo synthbax CD, and it's just he had a lot of trouble and during this period of time, and he admits it on the back, and says, "You hope you enjoy it." Bo Peep is good. Dave Carpenter's on it, but for the most part, and Eeny Meeny, and those are probably the best things on here. It's just a really depressing record, and I really don't understand the release of it. I mean, I think it certainly shows good music, but it's really weird to me that there wouldn't be a better presentation available to him at the time of that. And I think there was, and that's a 2001 record here. And it's just, to me, it's really depressing. And I never find myself going to it. And I don't find myself going to number 11 near as much either. This is the CTI disaster, known as Creed Taylor International Disaster. Good, Clean Filth, Floppy Hat, Wish, Kinder, Velvet Darkness, Karzaki, Last May Galax. Look, man, there's some great themes on here that would repeat themselves later. This is his solo material from CTI Records. This is a record from 1976. Legend is I think Alfonso Johnson reportedly. I don't know who the drummer was, but it's somebody going crazy here. There are no credits on it, but I think Narada Michael Walden maybe. But there was some crazy drumming on it and some good playing. But essentially, they go into a studio to rehearse this stuff. None of these guys had ever played before, and then that's it. They don't return for the recording. That was the recording. They end up putting it out, and that's what Holdsworth says. Holdsworth's really angry about it. He does not like it much. I put it at 2.5 stars, 1976. Next, I'm going to go to 1983, Road Games. People might be surprised, but I don't think this record stands up because the sound of it. This record was recorded on a prototype digital recorder at the time, and it suffers much of the sound. I think there was a remix later done with Mark Pinsk at Zappa's facility. Some of those things showed up on that Vault release that we were talking about. It really shows the problems here. This is a shrill album. Do I like Jack Bruce on it? Yeah. Was there material real? Fantastic. I think in a way they were told that I think they forced Paul Williams and they had somebody else, another singer that was released on this. So there's a lot of stuff related to this record that's on that Vault stuff. To me, some of it's interesting, some not. I mean, Water on the Brain, certainly there's a vocal version of stuff there. But, Tokyo Dream obviously is a Three Sheets to the Wind. The Road Games classic record. I heard a lot of that. I saw a lot of that when I saw the show down at the Bayou. I think that the sound of the record really limits it, though. It's 3.5 and the shortness of it, 1983. You can read about online the Ted Templeton relationship with Ted Templeton, etc. Let's go to 1996, 3.5. The Covers record with Gordon Beck again. He's moving back here to Gordon Beck, Gary Willis, Kirk Covington. Countdown, Nuages of John Coltrane. Astonishing, really, if you know it. How Deep is the Ocean, of course, Isotope, but I like a lot of the Joe Henderson song. Then you got the Gordon Beck songs, None Too Soon, Interlude. They're okay. Norwegian Wood, it's okay. The Bill Evans very early is nice. And San Marcos is probably the best of the bunch. But this is a production Allan Holdsworth. It's recorded over there. Big glass of beer on the back. He's a brewmeister, but a really clean recording and a more jazzy recording here with his folks back in the homeland. I think he deliberately wanted to do that, and they said None Too Soon. 1996. There must have been a lot of desire for it here. 3.5 stars. Not certainly one that I think is the greatest one ever, but I still like it a whole bunch. Let's get on to the next one here. And I feel bad. This is a 4-star record, 1985, that it's so low. It's number 8, but it shows how much I love this guy. Metal Fatigue, Enigma Records. Devil Take the Hindmost, of course, one of the staples of his live career. The Unmerry-Go-Round, In the Mystery, who I love. Metal Fatigue, of course, is really well known. But to me, I've always, even though I love Gary and I love what's going on, the Unmerry-Go-Round to me is never, even the extra version of it, I'm not real crazy about. In the Mystery, I like. Panic Station, of course. It's okay. The vocals are great. Great solos on this. Home is super great. Metal Fatigue, of course, is really heavy metal gymnastics. I mean, it's really a lot of the guys that were really metal players. I love that thing. They think it's a good reference point, and a lot of people don't know him beyond that, and it's a shame. Let's get into what I consider to be, some of the greater stuff here that we've seen here. Well, I'm going to say we're going to go on to number 7, a 1993 record, a record that I really probably underappreciate a bit, and that's Hard Hat Area, because I think, however great it is, Steve Hunt is on a bunch of this whole thing. Scully Stevenson, of course, fantastic player, and really, who can come in for Jimmy Johnson after all those years? Well, Scully can, fantastic going. All the time. Not a lot of stuff here happening besides just a super band. Of course, I leave out the fact that one of the greatest things is that Gary's playing drums on a record. Of course, I like when he plays keyboards too. Of course, he plays in McLaughlin's band. Any of you that don't know that, Low Levels, High Stakes. Rukuka is fantastic. Hard Hat Area. Tullio, I love a lot. House of Mirrors is one. And the Postludes and the Prelude, I don't like as much. That's kind of why I probably have it down here. Where I have it here, though, I have it at number 7, but it's still a 4-star record. Let's get into a complete change of pace here. 2016 Men of Tane. This is a more jazzy record. This is Gary Novak playing drums and Dave Carpenter on bass. This is an interesting record here. Walt Fowler actually plays trumpet on a couple things, and then Chad's on a record here. But this is really a jazzy record, and you need to listen to the way they even approach things like Looking Glass and different stuff live. You need to really examine Allan, understand how people, how his music was very dependent on who the players were. There was a vast difference between somebody like Gary and the way that Gary Novak approached it and Gary Husband did, and even Chad Wackerman. There's a completely different way, and I love all three of them. And this is an interesting record and a nice new thing to have. So this is my one. Texas, of course, fantastic. Eidolon, of course, Above and Below, Downside Up, 16 Men of Tane. Drums Were Yellow, of course, referring to Tony Williams. 0274, 16 Men of Tane. I mean, this record's really one you can put on the beginning to the end. It's nice and quiet. It's not overbearing. I don't think you're going to drive anybody out with technique. In other words, you can have your ladies in the room, and it really creates a vibe. I think he was working on something. If long term they would have gone with that quieter sound, that muted sound, and in a way Pat Metheny kind of had that. But it's more sounds like that. But again, not something that was stuck with, and it was kind of closer to the end of the recorded line at 2000. Really, the next to last thing that he did, and it's a shame. Let's get into the blazing hot. Let's get into the heat now. 4.5, 1987, what my friend Ariel and I used to call Sonda. Something else about it. Just a fantastic run through the syntax. Pudwad, of course, just the peaks and valleys of it. And it wakes up and goes through. I mean, when he starts to just erupt in those mountains of emotion, you can't believe that somebody can play like that. Distance versus Desire, just a beautiful syntax situation there. Clown, neat song. I didn't appreciate Clown until a little bit later. Like it a lot, and of course 415 Bradford executive love that. This album really has a lot of heavy Chad on it. Chad is fantastic on it, and of course MacMan too. I think it's a strong one all the way through. This is a certainly syntax record. This was on Relativity at the time. I remember it didn't go a long way, but with it, but at the same time, I liked it. But I think that it was really working on the margins of. After trying to do so on Metal Fatigue a little bit, be a little bit more commercial, a little bit more appealing to the hard rock fan or the other type of fan, it's certainly veering more towards the jazz and the avant-garde. And while we're talking about that, let's talk about the fastest head in the history of music, Non-Brewed Condiment, featuring on Atavachron here. Atavachron is going to be the number 4 1986 record, 4.5 stars. Of course, the brilliant, incomparable Looking Glass with the greatest drum fills, and Jimmy Johnson. I would love to hear an interview of Jimmy Johnson about what that recording session was like, whether they did it like when he looks over there and hears those riffs that he's playing. It just was fantastic. I heard he wanted to play on more of the record, but and there maybe were some other tracks. And of course, another one of mine that is just off the freaking charts. You're not going to find anything else in the world like the incredible Funnels. I mean, Funnels really has, you can hear it's Gary Husband. It says Jimmy Johnson on the record. It's not, he's a bass player, but he's a bassist on it, obviously, but not the drummer. Billy Child's playing keys, and wow. Dominant Plague, of course, has that percussive deal. Atavachron, wow. Another great one. All Our Yesterdays, Rowan Mark singing it at the end. Mr. Burwell. I'm not quite as great on the closing tracks on the rest of the record. That's why it doesn't rate higher than it does. I like them. I think they're good. I'm just saying they're not on the level of some of the other stuff that I'm getting ready to talk about. And what I'm talking about here after Atavachron may surprise some people, but I'm talking about 1992's Wardencliff Tower. 4.5 stars here. 5 to 10. I don't like that little joke about the jazz thing. Sphere of Innocence, of course, is fantastic. But then you get, to me, one of the powerhouses of all of the catalog, and ne'er talked about, the title track, Wardencliff Tower, which to me has some of the most incredible solos I have ever heard. It's almost like the keyboard is wanting to be a guitar, is wanting to be the guitar, and the guitar wants to be the keyboard. Well, back-to-back, Mr. Gary Husband and Mr. Allan Holdsworth over the churning, relentless drumming of Chad Wackerman that keeps pushing and pushing and pushing it, so you get the best of everything. The lines in this, fabulous. Gary Husband's solo, the first solo, the piano solo on Wardencliff Tower, may be my favorite solo in the whole catalog of Allan Holdsworth. I get so freaking excited from the interplay between and then when Allan comes in on the song, I mean, it's just, to me, there's a lot of great tracks, but to me, if I were to name my favorite Allan Holdsworth track, would be Wardencliff Tower, the title track on this. I love Dodgy Both too. Zarabeth gets a lot of clock the same way as Against the Clock does, but my favorite is one of my favorite on the second side, and would be in one of the top of also of the greatest hits of this is Chad Wackerman's Dissonant Questions. The weirdly dissonant, insistent vocal. I mean, not the vocal, but the melody that really grates against the chords. There's something about it that you end up loving it, and it's interesting. Jimmy, it really excites Jimmy Johnson too. You can hear Jimmy playing on it well. But yeah, this is a very special thing. This is all about electric power. He said electric power is everywhere, present in unlimited quantities. It can drive the world's machinery without the need of coal, oil, gas, or any other fuel. Nikola Tesla. And that's what it's about, man. That's what he's talking about. Not. I'm not talking about the Tesla now. I'm talking about the guy who was into electricity and who Wardencliff Tower is a tribute to, Nikola Tesla. Let's move on then to album number 2. And it was very difficult for me to put number 3 to number 2. On certain days, I'll move back and forth. Same with number 4. I think the top 4, maybe 5, are in a different league of their own. The one off I spoke about earlier, Mr. Vince Kuda, and Mr. Allan Holdsworth. Secrets. Originally on Relativity Records. City Nights, Gary Husband's song. Gary, beautiful song, but astonishing interplay between Vince Kuda and Allan Holdsworth. I mean, it's really, you have to hear it. It's one of the moments in recorded history that the polyrhythmic interplay is mind blowing. You can hear the waves going crashing through each other. Then you got the song "Secrets" with Rowan Marks providing a good vocal. Probably my favorite song that she sings. 54 Duncan Terrace, a little bit of another mid tempo one, Pat Smythe one. Good record. Alan Pasqua on that. Joshua, that I think is very special. Steve Hunt composition, and Vinny really plays his ass off on it. There's somewhere online where they speak about that. Maid Marian, of course, the other song on the other side, but that's the end of side 1. Side 2 starts off with equally astonishing spokes. Both of the sides start off, the vinyl sides start off with really just jaw-dropping moments. Spokes is more of a syntax matter, but the interplay, the thing that makes it so interesting is you can hear by the attack of it what he has to do to anticipate the thing. So he really has to anticipate and play it more like he's playing a keyboard when he's playing this stuff. It's so astonishing because it's really hard. You got Peril Premonition, of course, and Endomorph to rock it out. 4.5 stars there was what I had before, but I'm going to go ahead and put Secrets at 5. I think it's a must for anybody to have. And number 1 here, let me show you something here. I've got something that came inside one here. Allan Holdsworth. And Allan Holdsworth IOU press pack that came inside. The guitarist goes solo. All this stuff inside the record. Disturbingly Normal Genius, sample reports, GPI publications. This is all inside my record. What record, you may say? Well, to me, all these other records, some of them may have recorded under better circumstances. Some of them may have been recorded under in a different situation. But there's no record that I can think of that came headlong into the wind and created something new. You can do a lot of things, but if you're creating a new language and a new musical thing, and this is a reaction in me, my reaction to this record was that of disbelief. I could not believe that 2 players, me being a drummer at the time, I play guitar now and I play guitar okay. I'm not great. I'm certainly not. I mean, geez, who is? But I'm not anywhere near even understanding what this guy's doing. But when you hear this, and especially when you heard the melodies, and you heard the speed ups, the slow downs, the way they were worked out, the breaths, the communication between Gary Husband and Allan Holdsworth was freaking revolutionary, man. When this thing came out back then, Gary has talked about it. I've heard interviews where he talked about it, where people thought he was fucking stuff up deliberately, trying to make it difficult. No, they were trying to make something happen. And they did through their whole career together. And to me, that is probably the biggest loss and the biggest thing that I hate, because their thing was, to me, dude, is sacred. It's like I put this on the level, to me, in my age, and you guys laugh at, you can laugh all you want. I put on the level of John Coltrane. This is a guy who reinvented guitar. If you don't know about this, you go online and watch him talk about his scales, watch him talk about chords, and tell me you really understand what he's doing. You don't. There's you have to go through an entire hard thing to happen. There's a couple guys online that do a pretty good job. I mean, they've got the thing covered. Here's the original one on the IOU label. This is before it turned red. This is the one you bought at the show, man. This is the one. This is the one there. And I also have here. Too bad you can't get it anymore. Wouldn't it be nice? Look at this thing, man. You want to enjoy something? Check this out, dude. Look at that. There's somebody who bought this from a show, not me. I wasn't living in Cali. I have another verse. I have another copy of this here too. I think it's the same. Yeah, it's again Allan Holdsworth, AH, the label, record label, AH. Yeah, Allan Holdsworth, IOU. That's the way it looked originally, folks. And it's got that nice, beautiful black thing here. And it talks about at the bottom, it actually has a California number on it. So this is the one I think that after the fact. And I don't know if I have one before or not. I've got three or four copies of this, actually, if you include the Enigma release. But yeah, this is a 714 one. It's a nice shape. This is a beautiful condition. And I also have this. I don't know why this came in here, but somebody left this in here. So I have an extra copy of that. Check this out, dude. A flexi disc with Robert Fripp. I'm just discovering it like you are for the first time. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I think Allan's music is something special. The things you see, Where Is One, checking out Letters of Marque, of course, which they play till the very end. Out From Under, Temporary Fault, White Line, of course, one do they play till the end. Shallow Sea, if you hear some of those live records from Japan and stuff, you can hear. It was always there between those two men. They had something special. They made something special. And they really made something against all the odds. If you hear some of the things that they had to go about recording this on a barge on the sea, nothing like it, man. I don't care about the sound quality. I know it's inferior to some of the other things, and they tried to dress it up. I don't care. This to me is like gold. This is a moment. This is a moment in time where things changed. There was a big change here, and there was a new sheriff in town, as far as I'm concerned. Sheriffs in town, and everybody who was who flocked to see them. And not that I was that, but it's a fact. Everybody that was there in California, a lot of them were musicians. A lot of people on their tour in D.C. Everybody in D.C. when they came out, all the musicians were there. They love the guy, man. I love the guy, and I miss the guy. And I'm so sorry about the life story. I hope to God one day somebody tells the real life story, the honest life story. The problems that he had too, and the effect on his playing. I know that Gary had been a little bit, had said some things about towards the end. It was, he couldn't do some of the things that he used to do. And you don't know if that's because of dexterity or because of being injured or just, maybe drinking or something. But nevertheless, he left us with a legacy that will not be forgotten. The once and future great, as far as I'm concerned, of the guitar, Allan Holdsworth. IOU. Certainly I do, man. Certainly does any connoisseur of modern rock. If you haven't checked it out, you need to check it out. Yes, you're going to hear some sounds from the 80s. But get past that. Get to the notes. Nothing like it, dude. Thanks a lot. Have a good evening. Thanks for staying with us. Good evening. Leave your list. Leave your comments, please. Subscribe. Thank you. I don't mean to yell at you. Thanks. Bye.